Well, Donald Trump was very aware that the world's media and the world's eyes were on him in his first full day as a convicted felon. And he took the opportunity to come here to his Midtown tower to once again rail against the US justice system, to take the fight once again up to the prosecutors who had brought these charges against him, to rail against the judge who oversaw this particular case, Juan Merchan, labelling him a tyrant. But perhaps the most substantial thing that we heard from the former president today is that he indeed will be appealing this decision and that the fight is not over.
So we're going to be appealing this scam. We're going to be appealing it on many different things. He wouldn't allow us to have witnesses. He wouldn't allow us to talk. He wouldn't allow us to do anything. The judge was a tyrant.
And Carrington, what has been some of the political reaction to yesterday's verdict?
Well, it's important to point out, although you would think Donald Trump would not like to be bestowed upon the title of convicted felon, his campaign points out that they have taken in nearly $60 million in Australian terms of new funding for their campaign. The donations came in thick and fast in the immediate aftermath of this decision being handed down. But you would think him once again going on the offensive against the judge could potentially be causing him problems when it comes to the sentencing that's going to occur on July the 11th. On the other side of the aisle, we did hear from the man who currently occupies the Oval Office, Joe Biden, who said that the important thing here was that Donald Trump had received a fair trial and that it showed that once again, nobody in the United States is above the law.
And it's reckless, it's dangerous, it's irresponsible for anyone to say this was rigged just because they don't like the verdict.
So that was Joe Biden speaking. Now, he has been relatively careful throughout this particular trial to not make it too political, but it seems clear that his campaign believes this is a moment to capitalise. They want this to be a contest between the characters of the two men vying for the office. Joe Biden's campaign says that Donald Trump simply can't be trusted, that America should not have a commander-in-chief who is a convicted felon. The question now becomes, though, of course, what will be the punishment bestowed upon Donald Trump? Although there is the potential of 4 years imprisonment, the logic up until now has been that that would be an extreme punishment given the nature of these offences. However, given that Donald Trump has continually breached the specific gag orders that have been imposed upon him in this trial, the fact that he has showed no contrition since this conviction was handed down, and the fact that he still personally is going after the judge, you would think would work against him when it comes time to bestow that sentence. Now, that probably doesn't mean that the former president is heading to Rikers prison, but there are other potential ways that he could be punished, including some sort of home detention or some sort of restriction on his movement. This is one of the major questions now for the American political system. How do they deal with somebody who so flagrantly disregards these type of decisions by the justice system? And then the question, of course, becomes how will the American voters, the American public, actually respond to this? Polling has suggested up until now that at least a small percentage of Republican voters do not want to vote for a convicted felon, but Donald Trump is very clearly running on this line that this is nothing more than political persecution. The question is whether or not that line will resonate more strongly than any sort of discomfort Americans might have with having a convicted criminal in the White House.